let's turn to American politics and talk to, from the Republican Overseas Organisation here in London, Erol Morkoc. Erol, are you in London or are you in your fine country?
I'm actually still in Davis since we last talked.
Still in Davis. Enemy territory, as we were discussing.
Exactly.
Now, eventful few days, obviously. Kamala cackling away last night. Does she actually write her speeches? Because if someone else is writing them, they're peculiarly empty. They don't seem to have anything in them. But before we get on to Joe Biden's brilliant gaffe, another of Joe Biden's gaffe, let's remind ourselves now, Kamala had this sort of what she called her final address to the nation last night. But what I thought was funnier was the night before. And now this woman, she knows how to kill a crowd stone dead. Watch this.
Okay, now I want each of you to shout your own name. Do that. Because it's about all of us. It's about all of us. And listen, I have fought my whole career.
God, she's so manic. It's kind of weird. Really over-the-top manic. But she killed that moment stone dead, didn't she, Errol? Now, before we get on to our discussion, let's remind ourselves of quite a seismic event. Old Joe Biden, remember him? I think he's still your president. I'm not sure he remembers that. Anyway, he should have just wound his neck in and shut the hell up. Democrats are saying this. He's got an ego the size of the planet. He really is. He could not stop himself giving another speech, and he called Donald Trump supporters garbage, which is right up there with Hillary Clinton calling them deplorables, arguably the moment that cost Hillary Clinton the 2016 election. Let's remind ourselves of the latest of Joe Biden's many gaffes.
Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Now, Errol, that is quite a key moment. The Democrats are furious about that because you can't turn around and call, 66 million Americans who voted for Trump the last time, half the country. You can't call them garbage. Trump was very funny about it. But this is another key moment, I think, in the decline of Kamala Harris's chances.
I would tend to agree with you entirely here. I mean, it's surprising, they did call us Nazis right before they called us garbage. It's not as though that garbage. I mean, I'd prefer to be called garbage than a Nazi, I suppose. I think Elon Musk's mother had the best response. She said, "I used to be a Democrat, now I'm garbage. I think I'd rather be garbage." And it sort of speaks. It's her deplorables or his deplorables moment for her, I suppose. It took all the gravitas off of her end of campaign speech. And also, look, that comedian, that shock jock kind of comedian who made that joke, that definitely, regardless of it being a comedian or whatnot, that wasn't playing well optically for us. But you know what plays a lot worse? Calling everybody garbage directly to their face, which Joe Biden did. And that's what they think of us. That's what they think of me. I know that. They think that of my friends. They think that of my family. They think we're rednecks. They think we're garbage, uneducated. If only we, could see things. And they're honest about it. They call us Nazis openly, without shame, call us Nazis. My neighbor has a sign up effectively calling me a fascist for having a Trump sign. It just says, I'm against fascism, implying that I am a fascist. And that's the discourse we have in this country. That's how political sign discourse in neighborhoods is. Imagine how it is behind the scenes. It's catastrophic, and it's leading to political violence. 2 assassination attempts on President Trump. I suspect there'll be more based on this divisive, hateful rhetoric coming from the left. If your enemy is Hitler and their supporters are garbage, what's to protect me from walking in the street this weekend and somebody come up and attacking me from the back? I have a legitimate reason to be afraid of this rhetoric coming back to hurt me as a Trump supporter. So I think it's dangerous.
I absolutely agree. And Donald Trump has found out how dangerous it is twice. And let's hope he doesn't have to go through that again. But I wouldn't be surprised the way things are going. It's so irresponsible, this rhetoric, this narrative from the Democrats. But nevertheless, despite all of this, it's looking good for Trump now. Frank Luntz, the sort of soothsayer of American politics, the man who calls every election accurately, has done for about 30 years. He said that until about 3 weeks ago, he thought maybe Harris would just about edge it, would win. And he said that the moment she started calling them Nazis and fascists, the moment the Democrats just rounded on Trump, started calling him a Nazi, Frank Luntz said that was the moment that she lost the election. He now says he believes Trump will win, specifically because of the Nazi fascist rhetoric. So they're shooting themselves in the foot, and actually all of that stuff is a sign of utter desperation from a party that knows it's on a downward streak.
It is, and it's also going to inspire the low propensity voter. It's not as though people weren't decided, but there are people who just don't get up off the couch. And this kind of rhetoric, calling people fascists and Nazis. I mean, look at Eric Adams, mayor of New York, had to come to Trump's defense, said, I know what fascism is, I know what Nazis are. Donald Trump is not one of these things. I mean, it's crossed such a line that I don't know how they're going to walk it back. And I think that they've gone all in on it when they actually had the upper hand. You had the honeymoon phase and you had the hope and joy kind of vibe. They could have kept that going from a political standpoint, but they turned to hate and divisive rhetoric. And Trump turned to a much more positive, kind of loving message to all Americans. And somehow they gave away that pole position in the dumbest way possible. Only a party that traded Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard for Dick Cheney would be as dumb as to do that other trade they just did. So these people are the worst tradespeople in the history of tradespeople, and the U.S. citizen has felt that for the last 4 years.
You know what, Erol just made a very good point there. At the beginning of Trump's campaign, for far too long, there was something sort of bitter and angry about his approach to the campaign, you know, always complaining, you know, miserable, angry, bitter, you know. And meanwhile, Kamala was going, rah, 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 I'll bring you joy and love. Annoyingly, that kind of nonsense was working for a long time. But what's happened in the last month or so is the whole dial has completely reversed. And Donald has got a real feel-good thing going on. You know, he's laughing all the time. The McDonald's stunt was just an absolute world beater. Yeah. Would you like lies with that, and so on and so forth. He was even very funny about Joe Biden. He said, oh, forgive him, for he knoweth not what he says, and all that kind of stuff. So he seems very upbeat. And meanwhile, the Democrats are just angrily yelling Nazi and fascist. What's your feeling? You know, he's ahead in the majority of on the polls anyway, of the majority of the swing states. Do you think he's got the momentum? Do you think he's going to do it?
Yeah, I do. He's got the momentum. And look, everybody's terrified of these results because we are so untrusting, right? So we're getting all this positive news in polling and everything, and everybody's terrified to actually make a declaration on it. But I really think that there's been an current in America. I know people across the political spectrum who've changed their mind. I know Arab Americans who in 2020, I mean, they couldn't have been the biggest haters of Trump. They were friends of mine, but they hated the guy. This time they're voting for him. You would be shocked by the 180 that's been done. I've seen just an underswing of support with young people, with cryptocurrency people, with libertarians, with people who normally would have seen the Republican Party as not their party. Now it's a big tent, a really big tent. Hispanics are coming in. So in every metric, we're winning. Early voting, we're winning based on comparatively. The blue firewall that they had in Pennsylvania was 1.1 million votes last time. I think they're at 300,000 at this point. We've out-registered them in Pennsylvania. So yes, on all metrics, I do have to be positive and look at them and give it a real analysis. And yes, I think we're in the pole position, and I think we're going to take it because Kamala Harris doesn't have any substance. You still couldn't find me somebody who could tell me what she's going to do the first week of her presidency. Yeah, well,
do you remember when, was it CNN or was it MSNBC asked her that? I think it was CNN. They asked her that very question, and she's such a lousy candidate. She didn't even prepare for that. She sort of stumbled. If you remember, she went, and help the middle classes. Great answer. That's what you're going to do on day one. Yeah, brilliant. She's a lousy candidate. She's an empty vessel. And if you want any more indications that it's swinging in Donald's favour, the money markets, all those evil traders, they're shorting on a Trump victory, and the betting companies have got him as favourite. You want to listen to the money markets and the gambling companies, and they've got it. They're calling it Trump every day of the week. So fascinating stuff, Errol. We'll be in touch before next week. Good to talk. That's Erol Morkoc there from the Republican Overseas Organisation. Better go straight to break, and then we'll take some of your calls.